Hi, I'm Amanda Edmunds, and I will be observing a third grade teacher at Lincoln Elementary School in Plainfield, Illinois. This teacher has been teaching third grade here for 3 years. I will be observing 2 guided reading lessons in which the teacher will be working with 6 students at a time at her reading table, and the rest of the students will be working on daily 5 literacy activities. These activities consist of read to self, read to someone, work on writing, word work, and listen to reading. After 20 minutes with one group, she will switch and teach a separate group of 6 students. The first group is reading the story A Day at the Races, an on-level short story that spans over 4 days. This group is on day 2. Their focus for the entire story is determining problem and solution. The focus for this lesson is using what was read to make predictions for the rest of the book. The second group is reading The Go Boat, another grade level short story that spans over 4 days. The teacher will be introducing this book to the students. The focus will be on making connections and previewing vocabulary. After both groups' mini lessons, the teacher will have them whisper read the assigned pages. At this time, she will observe the reading strategies one at a time. Some instructional strategies that she will use are review and check for prior knowledge, guided practice, provide information, link new information to prior knowledge, and check for understanding and questioning. She will differentiate by utilizing small group instruction and leveled readers with students at similar reading levels. The students that are working independently are working on various assignments designed to be at their independent level. Student engagement is addressed through connecting the story to their personal lives and having discussions about those connections. Students that are working independently are engaged with books that they have chosen themselves to read and are given choices for journal writing and word work activities.
This is Mrs. Edmunds. I don't know if you remember her. She was here a couple years ago. She taught third grade in that classroom across the hallway. And she took host to the old classroom. Mrs. Edmunds now. I don't think you remember her. You were in first grade. Well, you were in here. You were in here. Yeah, I was only for second grade. Yeah. Okay. All right. So some of you might have been here. Some of you might not have been here. I used to go here, but I used to like different much rubber. I'll hold on to this. I got an 8 and 1. And it's I remember that. Okay. So let's go back to our story. Do you remember A Day at the Races? Yeah. Okay. So I remember that we talked about it, but we didn't really get into the reading. Oh, wow, you remember that word that we talked about. Awesome. Thank you. Open right to the page. Okay, so before we start reading, I just want to refresh your memories a little bit. Just want to teach you both first for now. Just to refresh your memories. Everyone in Morganville is very upset because they always have a fall fling, but this year the farm that the fall fling is held at the farm has been bought by new owners, and the farm is being used for farming, not a fling, and so the kids are very disappointed, but there actually turns out to be some hope because the kids actually know one of the girls who lives at the farm, and they think that they might do some sort of race. It won't be exactly like it was in the past, but some sort of race that is similar to the races that they used to have. Samantha? I see like the first cover that they're happy, and see the dog, the girl, and the boy, and the boy tail the corn, and then they went up, and they're running, and it's like he's not going to get it to the barn. So So the very first thing that you said really stood out to me. You said that they're happy. So even though it's not tradition, not what they're used to, you notice that they're happy.
This is probably the ending. Because the ending is probably when they're happy. The sadness is probably in the middle.
So they're probably sad that it's not the same fall fling that they're used to.
And that's probably at the end they're probably going to be all happy and happy.
So we can predict that they can still have a good time even though it's not the same fall fling that they're used to. I love that you guys are raising your hands, but back here, remember we don't have to raise our hands. Just remember that you're not talking on top of someone else. The dog looks like something.
I see no rabbit.
What's that?
No rabbit.
A scarecrow?
I think me too. A race and a maze.
A race and a maze. What makes you say that? A corn maze. Okay. Uh-huh. And do you think that they had that at their old fall fling? So you think that is a tradition that continues? Uh-huh. Okay, if you remember it, you can tell me.
Me, my brother, and my neighbor, we went to, like, we have a really long school, and we just walked to the ground, and we actually made a little like, if anybody wants to go in and sit in the front and it kind of leads to, like, the head out.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if anyone has been to any sort of, like, pumpkin patch or fall fest this year. Awesome.
I just went last Saturday.
Okay, so you can relate to how much these kids love their fall fling. Alright.
And we also entered an artistic to see if, like, we have a map and you can't use it if you only just have one map. And you have to go through the cornfield maze and you can't look up before them, but you have to follow the map. If it's upside down, then it's kind of tricky, but then you're going down. There's like bells you have to ring it. And then I love mazes. And then you have to keep going. And then like the first bell, and then the second bell, the third bell, the fourth bell. There's like 5 bells because the time gets so big. And then once you get to the end, and we're getting out of it.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, so we are going to read. Just open up your book. The first page is page 5. And we are going to read all the way to page 14. We're going to whisper read. So whisper read is just look at that like this. Loud enough for me to hear you, but not loud enough to hear anyone else. So, I don't have to write them. The school will write them for me. Everything is just all the books they need. Yes. Okay, so the books for read, or the pages for read. 5, starting on 5. Stop on 14. If you finish, we'll go back to page 5. I'll come around, listen to each of you read. Okay? And I think what we'll do, some of you can turn them in. If you'd like, you can turn your body and your chair out. And why we do that is because sometimes they distract you hearing other people read. But if you want to stay turned into the table, you can do that. That's up to you. Okay, does anyone 1. In and out. Okay. We will just turn the whole chair. So just like that. Just like goes back. Not coming back to you. You can just come in. Alright. So let's go ahead and start reading.
What she's feeling, working on writing, okay?
looks like the end of the Greek silver. I don't know about you guys, but I will not go. I couldn't go to school without it. Your map and your teaching because I do your backpack. About where are you? Where called math on the first day of school. I can't go to school without it. Math. You're impossible. Math without it. Math your teacher is supposed to she looks around to see where you was in class. Were you put in class? She thought she would know everyone choose easy one that one as who teacher matters for town. Are you school bus will be here in 5 minutes. Slower than or school at the beginning of the school says, I will before the ball swings. Only this year at the end of the September, there wasn't going to be a ball swing. By the way, when I looked at the boat, she said, their family lives with Sorry, I just met my parents with that. Pirates, did you guys finish reading all the sections? No, I'm on okay. Alright, Pirates. I want this picture back. Okay, so can we make it, I know some of you are still reading, can we make a prediction? So what we will find out is that the new girl and their cat lived on Delwood Farm. So, what a coincidence. You know what a coincidence is? Coincidence is something that is, how do I explain it? That seems, in the beginning, it's like it's a coincidence that the daughter ends up in their class. Like she could have ended up in anyone's class, but she ended up in their class. In the beginning, they're talking like. So it's a coincidence. It almost seems like, how could that be? Like in the first page, it's talk. They're like four kids are talking about the fall spring festival, and they want to go there, but their parents won't let them. They try to act like they said so. So maybe
someone we haven't heard from. Can we make a prediction, like what do you think will happen next with the new girl in their class? Kristen. Okay. All right. Okay. Right. So think about it. They can't just go up to her and say, "Hey, can we have this big fall swing at your place?" Thanks. Bye. Right?
You have to ask, like, can they bring, your field to a fall swing festival?
Right, but even before that, they've got to become friends, right? Okay, so if you're not done, finish up at your seat before you start your second rotation. If you are done, I'll take your book.
Yes, I guess.
And 10. Okay, please start your second rotation, and I'll see the cardinals.
I voted for our. I voted for Miss Brad. I'm eating one. I forgot Miss Brad. Yeah. Styles was cool. I like this. Yeah, I did it.
Okay, all right, Yankee. Work on writing. All right, and I've got your cardinals. Pirates. Okay, read this out. You guys can spread out. Remember, you should be arm's length away. And Astros, you're doing read to someone? Yep, okay. All right, Cardinals. I'd like you to meet Mrs. Edmunds.
Hi.
You might know her as Miss Cookie. She taught 3rd grade, back when you guys were in 1st grade.
I saw her, but I don't know.
So when your sister was in Mrs. Johnson's class,
She was here in 3rd grade.
yeah.
What's your sister's name?
Was she at that?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I remember her.
Awesome. Okay, so okay, so you can kind of watch us do that. Okay. Alright,
Like really?
But she's in the room.
okay, if you really want to know what she does in the class, okay, and it's part of her class. Okay, alright?
She is very downstairs.
Alright, we are going to get started. So, we have a new book, and that book is called The Global.
Yeah.
The Global? The Global. Alright, let's talk about this book. Wendy and her friends, remember the kids, built a go-kart for a local race. Their race is postponed when the community is flooded. And the kids use their car as they go boat to help their neighbors. And when the contest is finally held, the kids lose the race, but they get a reward for community service. Okay, so let's look at the title and let's look at the illustration on the front. What do you think
kind of like a bike or a car, but it will float on the water and stuff. Like it will ride on land and float on water.
Good. It looks like it's based on like a farm. What would you say that? Because I feel like farm. Okay, it looks like it's descended in a rural area. Okay. A bathtub. Okay. So what does that tell you about the materials that they use? It was junk.
It's not it's junk that could be useful to make stuff. Just like it's used.
Right. Things that they found around their house that they use. So talking a little bit about the book. What kind of races do you know about? Or what kind of races have you participated in? Okay, so running.
1K.
1K.
I heard of race cars. That's race car driving and like
Okay,
so
that's exciting.
horse races.
Horse races. Uh-huh.
But it's like sometimes usually I'm the first one.
Yeah.
Springfield
Bike riding. Bike riding.
Springfield duck races.
Duck racing. Tell me more about that.
It's kind of like you like. It's kind of like a festival, but you have people. There's some people in the water, and you like throw duck in the water, I think. And there's like where the ducks float, and whoever's first the finish line wins first. And there's some other activities that you can do. You can like frisbee and backpack or. Yeah, there's
deeper. Yeah, there's some like there's a bunch of like stunts that you have to do. Okay. There's like I went somewhere and there was like a hill and then there was like a little circle, like big circle of fire, and you had to jump through.
Oh, I know. The bike race.
I
watched that. I remember one guy.
Okay, so there's a lot of different types of races. Let's talk about some important and new words that you will come across in the year. Okay, so page 7. Let's turn to page 7. The word that I'm looking for is gadget. A gadget. Okay, it is in the very first line. Wendy's room was full of great gadgets.
I thought it was good.
Stegosaurus.
Okay, so gadgets. Gadgets are small tools that have a small or a special use. Can anyone tell me a gadget they use at home?
Phone driver.
A screwdriver.
iPad.
A hammer.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. What about a pencil sharpener? Wrench?
What?
What kind of a tool?
Saw.
Pumpkin carvers.
Pumpkin carver.
Yeah.
This tool.
Staplers.
Yeah, it has a lot of gadgets right here on this page right here. There's a
Rulers.
Lots of little steps again. It's on a page.
it's on a page.
Or the clock would ring and it would pour milk or something.
A pencil. So now, let's turn to page 5. Page 5. Turn back. The word I want you to look for is
But I'm not ready yet.
Found it.
It's the second word.
Okay. Alright, so can you do the sentence?
Oh, unintelligent, brain,
Okay, so based on the sentence, can you tell me the part of speech that meteorologists belong to? Science. Like, think back to what we learned. Is meteorologist a noun, a verb, an adverb,
a noun.
an adjective?
I would say a pronoun.
And then I have a think of the reason. Hold on to your question.
I would say pronoun. Wait, I would actually say noun because it doesn't have a couple of letters. Pronoun.
But remember, there's common nouns and proper nouns.
I would say
Any more questions? Not yet. Okay, well, let me give you the definition, and then you can see if it changes your mind. So, a meteorologist is someone who studies weather. Carol and Diana and Luan, you guys have one book, one or two books that you take at the beginning, and then you sit there in the same spot. I shouldn't see you moving. Meteorologist is someone who studies weather. Someone. A person.
that wasn't like
So what part of speech? Okay, so you need this person and this thing. What part of speech? A person who studies weather. Is it a noun, adjective, verb, noun,
I say pronoun or noun. I say a adjective.
Okay, it is actually a noun. And the key word is person. A person who studies weather. But I guess I can see when you guys said adjective. Alright, a couple more. Also, okay, turn to page 15. Rudder. Rudder. R-U-D-D-R. Rudder. A rudder is a flat, movable piece of wood. Flat, movable piece of wood. Okay, so we have it. You want to point to it. Take about halfway down. The flat, movable piece of wood. And it's used for steering. Rudder.
oh, the wheel.
Yeah. Think of it as a wheel, but it's flat. Okay. And one more word. Sorry, you flip all over back to page 8. Back to page 8. Done. Okay, this word is sponsor. Sponsor.
Found it. Sponsor.
Okay, it is in third line, first word. Third line, first word. Sponsor. A sponsor is someone who gives you money or support. Okay, so maybe you're selling cookies or not cookies. Maybe you're running a race and you're raising money. If someone sponsors you or gives you money, they're your sponsor.
Sorry, lemonade and milk.
Yeah.
Maybe like a television recorder. It's telling me about like shops and stuff like that. Like commercials. And so about
Not quite. A sponsor is someone who like directly gives you money because you're raising money for something. Okay, so We are going to read pages 5 through 13. Okay? Yay! We're going to read out loud. We're going to read in a whispered voice. Okay? This loud. Okay? If you want, you can turn your chair around so that you don't stay as you can. Okay? You can come around and listen to you.
Hi again, and please pardon the Halloween shirt. It is the day before Halloween, and we just finished up our Halloween parties at school. For my lesson, I observed 2 guided reading lessons in which the teacher worked with 6 students at a time at her reading table, while the rest of the students were working on daily 5 literacy activities. These activities consisted of read to self, read to someone, work on writing, word work, and listen to reading. After 20 minutes with one group, she switched and taught a separate group of 6 students. The first group read the story, A Day at the Races, an on-level short story that spans over 4 days. This group was on day 2. Their focus for the entire story is determining problem and solution. The focus for this lesson was using what was previously read to make predictions for the rest of the book. The second group was reading The Go Boat, another on-grade level short story that spans over 4 days. The teacher introduced this book to the students. The focus was on making connections and previewing vocabulary. After both groups' mini lessons, the teacher had them whisper reading the assigned pages. At this time, she observed their reading strategies one at a time. The instructional strategies that I observed the teacher using are reviewing and checking for prior knowledge. She reviewed what the students already read in day 1 with the first group and activated prior knowledge of different kinds of racing and pumpkin patches with the second group before starting the book. She used guided practice when the students were whisper reading. She listened to one student at a time and guided their understanding of the text and fluency. She provided information such as a preview of the reading for the day and important and new words. She linked new information to prior knowledge. For example, she introduced the word gadgets and gave the definition for the word. She then asked the students to name some gadgets that they have or use at home. Finally, this teacher checked for understanding and questioned the students throughout the lesson. When introducing the book, she asked questions such as, "What do you notice about the cover? Why do you think that?" and prompted the students to use the text. And what does that tell you about whatever the students were talking about? The teacher differentiated with small group instruction and leveled readers. She asked questions of varying levels of difficulty throughout the lessons and uses flexible grouping to create her groups. The students that were working independently were working on various assignments designed to be at their independent level. All students were reading books they chose on their own at their own independent level, and the students that were working on word work were also working at their independent level, which was determined at the beginning of the year with developmental reading assessments and pre-testing. For the work on Writing Center, the teacher had various journal prompts for each of the 4 reading groups. The prompts varied from simple problem solution questions about the story they were reading to higher level questions involving students to think about where the problems originated and if they agreed or disagreed with the solution. Students were engaged throughout the lesson and during their independent work time. Nearly all of the students that were working independently were engaged in the assigned task. Students entering the classroom during instruction went to their seats and began working right away without interrupting others around them. Students clearly knew the teacher's expectations and were able to stay engaged in the task at hand for the amount of time given. During the lessons with the teacher, engagement was addressed through making personal connections to the story and having discussions about those connections. The second group got off task more than the first, but the teacher redirected their thinking through questions that looped back to the topic they were originally discussing. Going into this observation, I was looking forward to it and excited about watching another teacher conduct similar lessons to my own. But I was also nervous about making the teacher feel like she had to put on a show. I did not want her to feel any pressure that she had to do any extra work for me. I made sure that I was very clear with her about the purpose of the assignment and that I chose her because I knew she would be a great teacher for me to observe and learn from. During the observation, I felt analytical, and although I knew that the lesson was good, I also knew that it was my job to find things that can be improved upon. As a leader, part of my job is to inspire and help my teachers grow. I think that the teacher was also a little nervous to have a peer observing her lesson and recording it, even though only her voice was in it. About halfway through my observation, the principal came into the classroom in an informal walkthrough. He talked with several students and then came and asked me jokingly, is she as nervous for your observation as she is for mine? I laughed and went about my observation, but I thought it was funny that he noticed that about this particular teacher as well. I felt that the observation went very well, and I was happy with the outcome. I saw some great things, and I saw a few things that I might add or change. The teacher was very welcoming and making sure that I had everything that I needed, and I now have a better understanding of what it is like to observe a teacher and take detailed notes on practices and strategies. One thing that went really well overall was the flow of the observation and lessons together. The timing was perfect in that I came in just as the first group was getting started. I observed their entire lesson and the transition into the next group, and then was able to observe the mini lesson for the second guided reading group and the beginning of their whisper reading time. The teacher did a great job with the transitioning of groups and centers using the call and response technique. She said a state capital while clapping the syllables, and the students responded with the state name. They also clapped the syllables, and all eyes were on her and ready and waiting for instructions. There weren't really any negatives about the experience overall, but there were some things that I might have done differently during the lesson or during their whisper reading time. One of my biggest critiques is that the teacher did not have any form of assessment. She was observing the students as they read, but she did not take any anecdotal notes or have any formative assessments. The teacher contributed a great deal to the flow of her lesson through clear expectations and having strategies that help students stay focused and accomplish her goals. She has a chart in the classroom telling each group what center they should be in at what times, and anchor charts outlining each center. The students know what areas in the classroom are for what center and where all of their supplies are. These practices are essential to the success of guided reading, and it is clear that the teacher took time at the beginning of the year to make sure that the students had built stamina in each area. She had a few students turn their chairs away from the table when the group began whisper reading to prevent distractions to one another, and she reminded the students that what whisper reading should look like and sound like before they started. She also took a moment to introduce me to each group that I observed, which kept students from getting off task during the lesson, asking questions about whom I was and why I was there. The few things that I would change or do differently did not lie in the management of this lesson, but in the lesson itself. This teacher did many good things and used good instructional strategies and differentiation. However, the objectives were not clear. I could tell what her focus was for each lesson, but she did not have set objectives, so the lesson might not have been as focused on the task at hand as it could have been. I would have had specific objectives to help me when observing the students' reading. I would then be able to take specific notes on the students' reading strategies or have questions to ask them to help me assess the students' knowledge and mastery of the objective. Overall, this experience was a positive experience that helped me to learn how administrators view lessons and what they look for when observing. As an administrator, I'm not nervous about the process of observing teachers, but I do slightly worry about the conversations afterward with the teachers. I want to make sure that I have recommendations for the teacher and share them in a respectful way. I learned from interviewing an administrator recently that it is important to make sure that the teacher first knows the positives in the lesson and how well they did. This process will not come for a while for me, but I am glad that I have had this experience to think about how I would have that conversation, and I now feel more at ease with my findings. If I were to do this activity again, I would try to have a template available for me to document the information gathered in a more organized format. I would familiarize myself more with the domains being assessed so I could focus on specific practices instead of trying to write everything I see and hear. I am looking forward to learning more about conducting formal and informal observations in the classroom and how other administrators focus their attention to make sure that they hit each standard and domain in the short amount of time. Thank you.